Welcome to the True North Fantasy Football Podcast.
What up, fantasy people? You are back with the True North Fantasy Pod. Trav here. I am chilling in Dirty Laundry Studios. And my co-host with the most is Tyrell McLaughlin, of course. Ty, what's cracking, buddy?
Same old. Back's cracking, knees cracking, rum's cracking. The huge, but cracking up inside of my head a little bit because I am super giddy for tonight's episode. Like, giddy. What about you? What's cracking with you?
I'm good, man. Had a good day today. Had the day off, luckily, so I've been prepping and getting psyched. You can find the team just before we get into that monster guest because I got to give him his just due on the welcome. You can find the team on Twitter at TrueNorthFFB, and our work is at TrueNorthFFB.com. All of our merch can be found at Viridian Global. Big shout out to them. We have a brand new primary logo that we just launched. So that design is out there on hats, toques, hoodies, t-shirts, crew necks, you name it. ViridianGlobal.com, and you can check us out as part of their football collective. But Ty said it, we have a monster guest tonight. One of the OGs in the fantasy football space. 1/3 of the fantasy footballers. It is
best backup.
The best member of the fantasy footballers.
Thank
it
you.
is my honor to give a big bonjour to Mike, the fantasy hitman. Right?
Yeah, this is legit. Bonjour.
This
bonjour,
is like
everybody.
The epitome of bonjour, my friend. We neither of us are fluent, but our country has that language, so we will attach ourselves to that. So yeah, bonjour, man.
Oh, bonjour. I will tell you this. I was a little caught off guard when Satan opened up the show there. Who was doing the voiceover work other than the devil on that intro there?
See that, for the record, that is my audio editing prowess, by the way. That's my voice, and that is as stadium-like as I can get that voice.
You're gonna scare Americans off from coming up here somehow, Mike.
I got you.
No, I might have to jump in your DMs for some tips on how to make that sound a little more stadium-like. I know that the music is your wheelhouse over on the Ballers Pod.
You want a tip for free? I mean, we got some
Hit
people
it.
in the chat.
Something free for the people in the chat.
Hot podcast tip that I like to give out to people in there because look, I get asked all the time, like, how do I make a really good podcast? And I'm like, stop talking to me, really. But seriously, your intro music, man, let that roll. Don't have that finish at the end of your video. Have that continue rolling. Keep that energy going while you guys jump on the mic, and let that music fuel you. And it's okay to be talking over the music. Don't worry about that. It'll hype you up. It'll hype the people up. It keeps the vibe going instead of just, you set the vibe. The fallen angel, the devil introduced all y'all, and then we're like, okay, True North, and then the vibe ends. No, you're like, no, man, let that roll. Get that music, keep that music going.
I like it. I am going to I'm going to work on my fade out game to get that. Yeah, right.
It's subtle, but most people seem to miss it.
No, absolutely. And we can just call that voice a White Walker, considering we are north of the wall up here. So
do they talk? I don't remember them talking.
I don't know. We'll just anyway.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, see you later, Ty. Take it easy, my man. Mike, one more thing I had that I actually noticed today that I wanted to talk about before Ty takes us into the fantasy football talk, because we're stoked to get into that with you. Can't wait for your insights this evening. I found a sound clip that is a must-have for you. So I was walking. Yeah, I walked my kid to school, and as I'm walking home, I'm bumping some tunes, just walking by myself. It was nice and crisp out there this morning, listening to Lottie Dottie by Snoop Dogg. And the one that you got to take is when he says, "When we rock up on the mic, we rock the Mike Wright." You got to take that, because you'll have your own little personal shout out from Snoop Dogg. and I think that's a pretty exclusive club.
That's true. Or he's
I
probably
figure-
on Cameo. I could
Yeah.
probably hit him up on there.
There
too.
you go. Yeah, Brooks probably has some connections, I would say.
Yeah. No matter the cost, Brooks would foot that bill.
Yeah, you just got to send Snoop some Johnson's baby powder and cool water cologne, and then he'll let you use it wherever you want.
Claypool jersey.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Ty, why don't you dive into this fantasy football talk that we're going to start?
Well, Trav, when we got news that we are going to get Mike Wright on the show, we were so ecstatic, obviously.
Your people let you know you got news?
Yeah, well, we had a very difficult brainstorm session where we had to decide what we're gonna, what would best serve our listeners, and
I just like that you're reporting it like you guys didn't ask me to be on the show. We got news. I don't know how we did it.
It's the True North conglomerate, Mike.
But I really we didn't know what to talk about because we could talk, how nostalgic it made us feel because it takes us back to before when we were just playing fantasy football, when life was still fun. But yeah, we could talk about the fantasy footballers, how successful they've been. We could talk about how funny, entertaining, how close they come across as, because it always has been kind of the 101 of fantasy football podcast.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I think it's like an inarguable fact, Mike. Like you guys, you'd have to go around the world to find people who haven't heard of the fantasy footballer. So we're going to do none of that tonight, Mr. Hitman. What we want to do, because we have you on, is kind of take advantage and get your opinion on some of the more ambiguous players in fantasy football right now.
Oh, perfect.
And just, yeah, exactly. Like we won't hold you to these, but there's nobody better to ask because if people don't know, like the fantasy footballers are so unbelievably accurate. Like that is really the staple that I take away from the fantasy footballers. I know it is super entertaining. It is super fun to listen to. It's the GOAT show, but it's all about the accuracy to me because I'm kind of a data guy. So if I could lay out some of this data really quick in each of the past 3 seasons, all 4, because there is, what's his name? Robert Wyatt or whatever.
Yeah.
That guy's a machine. That guy is an absolute machine.
Waz is a beast, man.
But so is Andy Holloway, so is Jason Moore, so is yourself, of course. All 4 of you guys have been in the top 25 in Fantasy Pros accuracy competition in season 3 straight years, meaning 16% of all top 25 rankers from 2018, 2019, and 2020 have all been employed by the fantasy footballer. So
it's been a good
I want to know, well, is there like a method to your guys' madness, or is it as simple as you guys having such a strong team at the fantasy footballers and there's strength in numbers?
There's definitely strength in numbers, but I mean, you can tell like rankings is very difficult. But like I would say, what we're able to do is because it's our full-time gig, right? Which is it's an unfair advantage against a lot of people. I know a lot of people who do fantasy football, it's their side hustle. It's like they do it for fun. They want it to be the career, but it's just not there yet. But we, like 7 days a week, I'm in football, and so I've got Twitter. I mean, like neural linked into my head. I'm always on. I'm always absorbing the news. We have, and it's not just us. Like Brooks and Jeremy Alborn, we have like really sharp football guys in the office, and we're all always talking football. It's I mean, we talking stocks a lot lately because that's like the hot thing to do right now. Getting that and Top Shot going on, but
yeah, Top Shot.
But we all love football, and we all always want to get better at football, and it's about knowing just really being involved in the news, especially on Sunday morning when things take a huge, like the percentage of information that you get on Sunday morning, especially with ins and outs, and being able to assess that information quickly of, okay, player X is out, where most fantasy players are like, oh, well, shoot, okay, I got to swap someone else into my lineup. We're now, okay, what 4th string wide receiver all of a sudden is going to see an increase of snaps? Okay, well, I'm going to move that dude up in my rankings. And so that's kind of I would say the bigger advantage that we have with the footballers, because this is our job. So, and I appreciate you highlighting that. It's been a fun and interesting ride, because before we had the rankings, I mean, we had the podcast, I think we did a season before we were officially allowed to be in the Fantasy Pros ranking contest, because they don't let everybody in. You got to have at least some kind of proof of credential, proof of concept that you're taking this serious. So we had a year without it. And then we got in, things, we're doing all right, figuring it out. And we would see, because you got to check in on yourself from time to time, but we would see Reddit threads pop up. And people were saying, what podcast do you listen to? They list off a bunch of other shows. Our show would come up. And then people are like, yeah, those guys they're goofy. They're just telling jokes, and a lot of I hear poop jokes all the time. Who doesn't like a poop joke? I mean, get over yourself. It's funny.
Poop jokes are the best.
Everyone poops, and it's always funny. We're just if you listen to our show, we are ridiculous, but that's because fantasy football is supposed to be fun. Yes, we want to win, and that's why we say we do that stuff in the background. We try to make. If something's consumable, we try to tell people what our process is, so it's not just well, I feel really good about this guy. No, why do I feel good? And we try to explain those reasons. But so we would see Reddit threads start to pop up about, okay, well, but those guys are goofy. I can't possibly take them serious. They don't give good advice because they're goofy. And then we started having some success in Fantasy Pros, and we wouldn't even have to do anything. And Foot Clan members, listeners of the show would just jump in the thread yeah, but they would go into the Voice of Public and be like, yeah, except they all finished in the top 20 frequently. Yeah. Last year they finished top 10 in the draft rankings. These guys actually know what they're talking about and can be goofy and have a good time. So that's, to me, people ask, what is the magic sauce of the footballers? One, we are legitimately good friends we are very lucky that we just all happen to be at the same stage of life. We all have the same goals. We're all family guys, so none of us are like, man, I want to rock and be super famous and just travel nonstop. And some of that stuff is fun, but no, the most important thing is that I'm building a foundation for my kids, and I'm around for my kids, but I also have the time for my work and everything. So we're in the same stage, and that we're friends, and we all mesh, and we're all smart dudes. So those things have worked perfectly to form our Triforce or our Illuminati, whatever you want to, or Diamond Dallas Page, whatever you want to call that symbol right there.
Totally. I think that's really well put. And I think that goes a long way, how close you guys are. It bleeds through. It really does, because and I think how that can help with, group thinking through rankings and stuff is just that you do respect each other's opinions a lot more. It's not like a Twitter debate or anything. So very cool stuff. I think you articulated a lot of that really well. I wish we had time to ask Mike about, the differences in his rankings when it comes to Dynasty and Best Ball and stuff. But should we just get into some of the names here, Trav?
Yeah, we got a bunch to run through, and I think we got some really interesting situations to talk about. Really quick before that, I want to mention that we are brought to you by Monkey Knife Fight, the fastest growing DFS platform on the planet. You can get in there and throw down on some player prop games for whatever sport you want, aside from football right now, unfortunately. But that's the beauty of Monkey Knife Fight, is that they have all sorts of sports. You can go do hockey, you can go throw down on some basketball. I know NBA and Top Shot, like you said, is all the rage right now. So get in on some NBA action. And if you use the promo code TNFF, you get an instant match on your first deposit of up to 50 bones. And we appreciate everyone who has signed up. That helps the brand a lot. And we're looking forward to working with Monkey Knife Fight in the future.
Go play.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. This season, I was just dipping my toes into laying down some cash on different DFS sites and stuff. And Monkey Knife Fight was the perfect speed for me just getting into it. So,
I was just thinking the most recent episode of the Ballers episode, you guys were talking about quarterbacks. And I think it was you who brought up that maybe as many as 5 quarterbacks could go in the top 20 picks or something. I can't remember exactly, but all I remember is my reaction was prop bets. When does Monkey Knife Fight open their draft prop bets?
Yeah, I like it. So you kind of mentioned it earlier, Ty. We are going to talk about some player situations and kind of what these players bring to the table. So I'm calling it baller or faller in honor of Mike and the boys.
Oh yeah, I love a good rhyme.
That's my cheesy title. Yeah, I'm somewhat of a rapper, Mike. I don't like to toot my own horn or
Dude,
anything.
you want to? I can give you some. I can give you a beat. If you
Double
want.
beatbox.
Well, maybe we'll save that. We'll save that. Yeah.
We'll save
I
that
don't
for
wanna-
under pressure. We'll do under pressure
Yeah.
one day. Everyone does the part. We'll get all the ballers on.
Yeah, for sure. We're offering this for free, Mike, and that's paywall
Oh,
content.
that's premium content.
My rhyme's spitting, yeah.
That's good. That's good marketing.
So Mike, essentially we're gonna give you some players and we're gonna ask if you think they're a baller or a faller. Should we hold fast to these guys on our rosters, or should we get out now while they hold some value?
Are we talking dynasty or redraft here?
Yeah, from like a dynasty perspective. So are
Okay.
these going to be, are these going to be guys that right now before the draft, if their situations are about to change, maybe we want to explore trades right now, or vice versa, go and maybe acquire some of these guys. And we're going to start in AZ because that's where you are, and actually
All
where
right.
we're from, we call that AZ.
AZ. Oh.
Yeah, it's the Canadian. That's the last letter of the Canadian alphabet. We pronounce it Z.
Look, I like it. It prevents a lot of mishaps and miscommunications. If you just I like going with you. Like, oh, it's Delta Bravo.
Okay.
I totally get it. I get why the military has that for a reason. So that when there's helicopters going off and they're screaming in a microphone or in a little walkie-talkie, that they're like, "Did you say C or E? Why do all of our letters sound the same?" I don't know.
Yeah.
Nancy or Mancy?
Yeah. There's no confusing the words.
I will give it to Z that on the rhyming front, Z is way more versatile for rhyming things with. But anyway,
starting words with.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Z. Zoo. Yeah.
I'm out.
So the player that we're going to start with, Hitman, is Chase Edmonds.
Okay.
With Chase Edmonds, he's always given us flashes that leave us kind of wowed and hoping for more from him. He is going off draft boards right now in early best balls and startups that I've seen as somebody who is going to have a role. And this past year, he finished as the running back 26. He was 7th on the list of running backs as far as targets. And that was on under 50% of the snaps. So he had some pretty efficient work. That, of course, was all with Kenyon Drake in the fold, rushing for an extremely inefficient 955 yards on a buttload of carries.
Mm-hmm.
Drake's a free agent, Mike. It's safe to say that I think they're going to be bringing somebody in, whether it's maybe Drake back or they dip into the draft. But what do you think? Is Chase Edmonds somebody that's going to ball, or do you think that once that addition comes in, that he might kind of fall off of the value that we might be seeing in drafts right now?
I am good with the current draft price and dynasty price for Chase Edmonds. I think he is absolutely well worth it. He is an excellent player, but I mean, just going off of the beat reporters around here, it's they don't want Chase Edmonds to be the guy for whatever reason. I mean, you saw Kenny Drake was bad. He was bad to put it kindly.
Yeah,
and they still kept giving it to him. Now, what was interesting was why Kenny Drake was so interesting coming into this year's draft was because when he came in last year, even with Chase Edmonds here, that and David Johnson hurt, and then David Johnson kind of came back at the end, but they were giving Kenyon Drake the targets.
Yeah.
And they, for whatever reason, they kind of game planned that away, which really hurt the actual fantasy value of Kenyon Drake, and Chase Edmonds was getting far more involved. But he's an insurance back. He is a backup player. If you're drafting him with like your Monty Burns here of thinking you just stole the starting running back for Arizona, I would say your odds are very low of that you actually did that. Yes, they're gonna bring someone in. I don't think it's gonna be Kenyon Drake. There has not really been chatter though. I've not heard names associated yet with the Cardinals. A day 2 draft pick might make sense just given how they want to be offense heavy, and we need to get a running back in here. and there's going to be some interesting running backs this year in D2. But Chase Edmonds, people aren't overreacting or underreacting. If anything, they might be underreacting a little bit just of what he will offer if said starter is it gets hurt and Chase Edmonds has to pick up more slack. Unfortunately, Edmonds had his own injury stuff that he's had to deal with, and I think that's part of the problem is the team availability is an ability. I'm not going to say that he's injury prone, but if you could be on the field for 16 games and take that grind, that is an ability. It's a weird, intangible, immeasurable ability. You can't look at someone and say that guy. It doesn't matter how sturdy or thick. Look at like Shady McCoy. In Shady McCoy's heyday, he was a svelte, tiny little guy.
Yep.
Played.
He was always out there.
But he played. He would go down every single game there was a career-ending injury just happened. But then in 2 snaps, you'd see him on the side warming back up, getting right back out into the game. So you don't know whose body will actually hold up to the NFL grind, the grind of the season, especially at the running back position. And I don't think the team has faith that Chase Edmonds could be that guy, even if they wanted him to. So they will bring someone else in.
I kind of like Chase Edmonds in that shared role too, because like I said, he had less than 50% of the snaps last year, but he came out with the most snaps, targets, and receptions out of the slot for a running back as well.
Sure.
So they like to use him differently. So even with another running back, he can come in there and he can be moved around the formation. So I really like him there. And another name we got, our buddy Smokey is in the chat saying Michael Carter to Arizona. Man. I would love Chuba to go there. I would like him and his speed in that offense as well.
Michael Carter is, I don't know where I fall yet. Because I get it. I see what the people who are crazy bullish out there on Twitter they've ripped their shirts open and Michael Carter's written across their chest. I get it. I've seen the plays. I mean, Javante's way better because that dude is a reincarnation of. Reincarnation is the wrong word because Kareem Hunt is still alive and playing well, but like a spirit connection. I don't know, but Williams is Kareem Hunt to me. He's going to be freaking outstanding. But Michael Carter, like how big is he? And
how Eno Benjamin is he?
Yes, exactly. Like I mean, Eno Benjamin was a production monster. Travion Williams back in what was he?
We're getting tie hot and bothered.
Tech. I can't remember where he went, but production monster, but just too small for what NFL coaches and people really want. So, can Michael Carter actually produce at his size? It's like I have the same problem with Kenny Gainwell out of Memphis. I love Kenny Gainwell because. You get me a wide receiver that can catch a running back that can catch like a wide receiver. I'm all about that. The NFL is transforming, and those guys are far more valuable. In our truth series on the footballers, we were talking about how the value of a running back carry was averaging like 0.6 points or something like that, and targets it was way down at 1.3 points or something like that per target, and it's like that was down. Like the
scales were tipped all the way on either side, but we still saw the massive advantage you have catching a pass as opposed to
carrying. But it's still worth double of an attempt. Okay, so I want a running back who can catch the ball, but I don't know how big Kenny's going to weigh in when it comes to the pro day. If he's 205, okay, I'm much happier. But the same thing will happen for Michael Carter. How big is he actually? Because these college teams, like the way that they weigh and give a height to these players. I saw this. I think it was a TikTok. It was hilarious. It was a college wide receivers talking to their coach, and it starts off where the guy's like, "Well, I'm 5'7", but." Everyone knows that when you wear the shoes, you get an extra inch, and like it just keeps going. And by the end of the conversation, he's 6'2". And I'm like, exactly. That we can't trust the way that college weighs these guys in. So once his pro day hits, once I see an actual measurable, then I can make a better decision on Carter. But at this point, unfortunately, at this point I would have to lean that I'm out because I don't. It's hard to be that small. It's really, really hard to be that small in the NFL.
For sure. That's kind of the same type deal. How I tell people I'm a clean 170 and not a $185 when I'm telling them kind of where my weight's at.
I remember those days.
Yeah. I remember a $140, Mike. So I'm getting up there since having kids. But anyway, just to top that off, for me, regardless, the Cardinals backfield is one that I want to target pieces of.
Absolutely.
So definitely keep an eye on that because Cliffy does a great job with his running backs down south there.
He gives them the ball a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Offers that yards before contact advantage that is really jumping off the page in the last couple of years under Kingsbury. So the guy I have here, guys, is Ezekiel Elliott because we're kind of in a weird place with Zeke. I mean, he's been an elite running back. He's over 19.5 points in PPR every season of his career, fell to 14.9 points per game in PPR this past season. His ceiling basically for fantasy just came crashing down, even his floor, which is what Zeke's always been famous because his floor is so solid. He's the fucking floor master. But in 2020, Zeke finished outside the top 24 running backs 5 times. And that's how many times he finished outside the top 24 running backs in 56 career games before 2020. So, it's always been a volume play with Zeke, but even that came down a little bit last year. He also posted career lows in yards per carry, yards per touch. And I know situation can be everything for running backs. We, have just struggled to accept that with Zeke because we have Tony Pollard coming into the fold now. We have the Cowboys cratering when Dak Prescott goes out or when a little bit of adversity hits this offense. Plus, a lot of what we've pointed to in Dallas is no longer true. Not only has the offense shifted from being entirely run through Zeke to a pass-first unit under Kellen Moore, but the offensive line play has fallen off a cliff. And a lot of this is just really showing up in stuff like yards before contact versus yards after contact. Like he's not getting the same advantages that he used to get, and he's not compensating with yards after contact. So you look at his touchdown totals, also a career low in touchdown totals, and he actually had a career high in goal line carries this year, by far tied for the league lead in goal line carries per PFF. The problem at the goal line, again, is just efficiency. He scored just 5 times inside the 5-yard line, scored 10 times on just 18 carries in that range of the field in 2019. So when we look at him for Ezekiel Elliott, we have to kind of, I guess, pave a new path that we're gonna frontier with him. But do we think the efficiency is going to come back to, do we think he's going to restore some of this efficiency that he's had in the past? Or do we think with Zeke, that maybe we have to kind of cut ties right now before it's too late? Because my point here, Mike, is that he could easily rebound and be a back end running back one because running back is so situation dependent. So will we covet the situation enough in 2021 with Dak coming back and everything, or are you trying to get out on Zeke Elliott?
I don't have Zeke anywhere in Dynasty. And I think if I had him, I would be holding. The biggest question for me is, how was Zeke when Dak Prescott was the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys? And the answer is in a half-point PPR, he was scoring about 20 points a game. His lowest finish was running back 16. You throw the rest of the season away because you are absolutely right. Fantasy football for running backs is so situational. We want to believe in our hearts that it's these running backs that are getting everything done. I am unapologetically on team running backs don't matter. Sorry. But there are definitely running backs who are better than other running backs. So don't hear what I am not saying. There are top tier running backs, absolutely, who are when put in a good situation, will do better than a bad running back. Zeke and the Dallas Cowboys were put in a terrible situation. It wasn't just Andy Dalton who was starting games. You guys remember Ben DiNucci? And I can't even remember the other guy where the Dallas Cowboys quarterback situation was a disaster. And I love me some Tony Pollard because, look, I love Memphis running backs. This is just something that I have discovered about myself after the Antonio Gibson love last year. What happened after Tony Pollard came in, single-handedly won me my semifinals in my in my league of record. Shout out Tony Pollard, my man, coming through. But how did Zeke respond after that? Because Zeke does not miss games. That's part of the ability of availability. Zeke has it. That dude is a monster. He always plays. He finally had to miss a game. Tony Pollard goes ham. Is great for the Cowboys. I mean, to be fair, Pollard had a good game, and then he had a really good play at the end of the game to close it out to make his stat line look very, very impressive. How does Zeke respond? And half-point PPR the very next game, running back 12 with 23 opportunities. That's how Zeke bounced back. 18 opportunities in the final game of the season, finished as the running back 20. Those were both divisional games. Zeke saw what Pollard did and said, nope, I'm not taking any more time off. I'm not going to heal up. I'm going to get back on the field and make sure that Tony Pollard knows that this is my team. And I believe that if Jerry Jones is still the owner of the Cowboys, this is Ezekiel Elliott's backfield. He will be the guy. And if Dak Prescott, yes, the money is there. If Dak Prescott is the starting quarterback, which the probability is he will be, if nothing else, he'll be franchised. They screwed the pooch so bad on the Dak Prescott situation. But congratulations, you have your wide receiver and running back under contract, but not your franchise quarterback. So good luck or good work with that, Dallas Cowboys. But if Dak is back, then yes, I'm all back in. I would 100% be buying the dip on Zeke in redraft. Zeke is going to be a second half of the first round guy, and with name fatigue and one bad season, people are going to be bored of Ezekiel Elliott, and I will be, if I'm sitting there at 107 or whatever, I'm going to be super stoked that this guy who should be drafted as a top 5 running back just dropped to me.
Yeah, especially in redraft, I think Zeke's going to be a big target for that back. Like if he's going after the first half of the first round, it's crazy. I think a lot of it will come down to what his role in the passing game is. There's definitely a lot of rabbit holes to go down there, like his yards per target, yards after the catch, per reception, both dropped all 5 seasons in the league. So I have some questions about his efficiency going forward, but definitely because of situation being so important, I think Zeke is somebody that we should not be fading, especially in redraft in 2000.
But though, like, look at those. So the first 4 games, I'm taking Zeke was still great. He was the running back 2 in the game that Dak went down. But the 4 games, he had Dak the whole for the whole game, and in those 4 games, he was averaging 7.5 targets per game. Like Dak is still going to throw him the ball because he's going to be on the field, and Dak has learned that throwing to your running backs is it's a good idea every once in a while.
Yeah, it's like the only dump off route in Kellen Moore's route trees that he's having all the wide receivers run anyway. So that's a really good point for sure. Because they're going to be a pass heavy. Yeah, they're going to be a pass heavy team. Like that's the other misconception that we've kind of had to battle with the Cowboys over the last year and a half or so.
Yeah,
and that's
so.
Okay.
We've actually
I want to pass.
We've been campaigning to get Kellen Moore a head coaching job, Mike, and it's been going since 2020. So it's we're now on Kellen Moore 2022 at this point.
Well, I think I'm going like Joe Brady. There's like Brian Dable. I got guys ahead of him now. Kellen Moore's like he's fallen.
Totally.
Recency bias, man.
Okay. So the next guy that we are going to get into is Brandon Aiyuk.
Oh,
yeah, it's recently Hitman on your guys' show, the Shocking Stats episode. You guys were buying or selling Brandon Aiyuk as a top 24 running back, and you were actually the only one who bought that.
Wide receiver.
Curious because we like Brandon Aiyuk, the talent, in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's Kittle and Debo, with Kittle being the predominant target there. What do you think about Brandon Aiyuk having a seat at the players' ball?
Man, he is so difficult. He is unbelievably difficult to gauge what had happened because you have your sample of him playing with the whole team with the full allotment of weapons is very, very limited. What you know is the talent is great. We lost somebody. What is happening over here? I only have. Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you, Mike.
Oh, well, okay. Well, we lost someone on my video. I'm just going to keep talking like nothing happened. But so here's what happened with Aiyuk. What we know is he is talented. The 49ers were right drafting him in the first round. He was a very questionable call at that time if he felt like the scraps of those first-round wide receivers, but they were right. Aiyuk was great for the team. He absolutely came through. He was a stud. Aiyuk, unfortunately, has the shadow of Justin Jefferson cast over everything that he did. Because if Jefferson was 70% of what he was last year, people would be freaking out about what Brandon Aiyuk did. I mean, he was a waiver wire sensation. He was incredibly steady, very consistent. But the final taste, the last bite of the Aiyuk pie, cereal, whatever you ate, you took a bite. You went, oh, it's terrible, because George Kittle came back and Brandon Aiyuk did absolutely nothing, and that was a swift punch to the gut reminder that this is George Kittle's team. He is the number one option in the passing game, and he had not been around. And we have so many anecdotes and situations where we have seen the wide receiver 2 or 3 thrust into the limelight, and you're so sure, oh, well, look how well they produced. They clearly have earned the coach's trust. We go to all those narratives, and then the coach is like, yeah, but those guys are better. So I'm going to go right back to those guys. And Debo is Debo better than Aiyuk? I don't know. Does Coach Shanahan? The bigger question is, I mean, it doesn't matter what I think. I'm just some stupid guy with a beard who talks about fantasy football. Does Coach Shanahan think Debo is better than Aiyuk? That's the question. And I would say he probably does, but I don't know that for sure. Does he think George Kittle is better? 100%. So we know that the targets will not be what they were when George Kittle was off the field. So it seems right now that people are responding appropriately. But what at least you do have the evidence of is the target, or the talent and the scheme fit. It is there for Aiyuk. If he is called upon, he's gonna be great. So as long as you don't overreach for someone who may take a step down to, at the best, being number 2, he might be number 3. As long as you don't overreach with that knowledge behind your transaction, then you're okay with Aiyuk.
For sure, yeah, and I think for I can probably speak for Ty when I say that we prefer Aiyuk over Debo. I personally think he adds what Debo adds, plus he can do a little bit more down the field than Debo will. I think what you said about the coaching staff and who they like better and who they think is better is extremely important there, just because this is really run heavy, the San Francisco offense, and they're gonna run 2 or 3 running backs and not have a whole big passing pie for these guys. So sure. I think that was really well said. I actually wonder one more follow-up on that is, does your confidence in those pass catchers change if San Francisco was to say go out and get a better quarterback, like say a Deshaun Watson, like it's been rumored? I think that's going to be tough for them on the cap. But even maybe like a Sam Darnold, who isn't necessarily near Deshaun Watson's level, but he is kind of young and he's got some tools that Shanahan can work with. So do you think that Shanahan would open that offense up? Or do you think this is just kind of what his offense is? Because we saw that outlier with the Falcons when he was there. But aside from that, he's had garbage quarterbacks. And so it seems like he's tailored his offenses that way.
You need to apologize to my man Kirk Cousins.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty strong to say garbage. It was early in Cousins' career, so I apologize, Kirk.
Kirk Cousins was a monster. I
don't
remember
good
if he led the league in passing, or
that's right.
He was right there. I mean, Kirk Cousins was airing it out, man.
That's true. That's true.
He had D-jacks and stuff, so that changes how you call an offense. Kyle Shanahan, he's a good coach. He is a smart coach, and he's not. This will sound like I'm putting him on blast, but he's not Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians takes his scheme and he just shoves it down the throats of whoever's on the field. It worked out this year it's worked out a lot for Bruce, to be fair to his scheme, but it's his scheme. It's his scheme first, players second. And Kyle Shanahan's like, okay, these are the guys that I have. These are the skills that they have. I'm going to go with that. So he's a different coach. So if he has, it honestly doesn't matter to me really who the quarterback is.
Right.
That if Deshaun Watson went over to San Francisco, I wouldn't freak out about Brandon Aiyuk. George Kittle would just stay at tight end too. I wouldn't overstep and be like, "What? This is it. George Kittle has taken over Travis Kelce as the tight end one." It's like maybe he does, but that's not a bet that I'm willing to make. So it honestly it doesn't matter who the quarterback is for me, which is a weird thing to say because quarterback is the most important position in all of sports. For sure.
And there's very few coaches you're going to say that about too. And I like how you put that about Bruce Arians, because as a Cardinals fan, you endured a lot of that. Luckily, he had Carson Palmer in that rocket arm. But yeah, the Kangol Killa, we like to call him. It's nice. It's his way or the highway for sure.
Yeah, and like even with Palmer, it didn't work very well that first year.
Yeah, for sure.
Second year was fantastic, but the first year it didn't work. And Bruce was just like, I don't care. Figure it out.
Nice. Ty, who's your next guy, my man?
I got Michael Thomas up, which is another guy the Ballers had discussed a little bit on their most recent episode, or the look back stats one, the annual must listen every year. So Michael Thomas, he averaged just 12 points per game in PPR this season, almost half the points per game he averaged last year. Touchdowns are really troublesome. The uncertainty at the quarterback position, the unknown identity of the Saints offense in the short term post Drew Brees, definitely is causing us to have some debates about Michael Thomas. But my question would be, is it going too far? Like, how do you see this offseason kind of playing out for the Saints, Mike? And do you think Michael Thomas can overcome some of these obstacles and get back to elite status, or is he going to be more of a back-end wide receiver one going forward?
Sure. Michael Thomas, you guys are right. You're bringing up very difficult players to gauge, especially when you're talking about these are elite players and
guys we want to get right.
You got to get it right. If you're spending a first-round pick, you better be sure. So there was Michael Thomas, the season it's very difficult to dissect because, Drew Brees was gone for a lot of the season. My hunch is Drew Brees will be gone. So I am treating the offseason like Drew Brees is going to retire, that he might shock everyone and come back. I'm not saying that I'm not burying Drew Brees from returning. I hope he doesn't return. I think that it'd be better for him to be done, because it's
legacy wise. Yeah,
like he's still accurate, but I don't know, man. I watched Peyton Manning go from like throwing 50 touchdowns into a dude who could not throw the ball at all. It just, when it's done, it's done. But Michael Thomas was seriously hurt, and he forced his way back onto the field. And you know that now with a surgery, and they were clearly managing Michael Thomas the best that they could, but he was just very, very hurt. And look, ladies and gentlemen, look yourself in the face, look into the mirror, and imagine you have one of these injuries. Now imagine just walking. That's all you got to do is go. You got to take your dog out for a walk. This guy's on an NFL field, and he's hurt. And you imagine how much you'd be complaining with this guy's injury if you had to walk your dog? You'd be like, kids, I can't do it today. And meanwhile, Michael Thomas is over here on an NFL field catching passes from Taysom Hill.
Running slants.
Yeah. I'm fine with the slants. Michael Thomas is a good wide receiver.
Me too.
Look at go ahead. Please go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, Drew Brees has almost warped our perception of Michael Thomas. Like, I think it's unfair to try and proclaim what Michael Thomas might not be able to do, because we've really only seen him in this very low average depth of target offense where he's the go-to guy and needs to be within 8 yards of the line of scrimmage on every third down, you know?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing when you're like, yeah, but Michael Thomas he's been so great because he had a Hall of Fame elite quarterback. You're like, what else is he supposed to do?
Yeah,
Is he supposed to be bad? What do you want from the man? Like, get over yourself. That's a really strange argument to go to.
I don't even think it's the right one either. Like, we've seen 10 games without Drew Brees for Michael Thomas in his career. He averages 18.7 points per game in PPR, which is more than 18.5 with Drew Brees. So I think we should be more worried about this offense going even further towards that, run heavy style that we've seen them transform into under Drew Brees' aging tenure here. But I'm not too worried about who the quarterback is. I'm more worried about how this offense looks and if it is Taysom Hill.
Sure. So 2 games. So Michael Thomas comes back. He's got 2 games. He's still hurt. It's really bad. And then he jumps into a 4-game stretch, which to me a 4-game stretch is, I'm okay taking a look at that because they play 16 games. That's 25%. 4 games sounds like a really small sample. That's because the NFL season is a very small sample. So unfortunately, we get a small sample, and then we just look at smaller and smaller and smaller samples. But that's all we can do. But he had, after those first 2 games, 4 games, a target pace of 148 targets for a 16-game season, and now we're moving to a 17-game season. But 16 games, 120 receptions, over almost 1,400 yards. Like, he was still good. He's not the number 1 guy anymore. He may not even be a top 3 guy anymore, but do not throw dirt on Michael Thomas yet. That would be an absolute mistake for you to do that.
Yeah, like if you look at some of that too, like the market share was off the charts, the weighted opportunity, all that, like obviously it will take a little bit of a hit. Like, it's less valuable in the Saints offense than it might be in other offenses. But yeah, I had a 6-game stretch here from Michael Thomas weeks 9 to 14. And I think it does almost capture perfectly what our expectations might be going forward. And like you said, he was hurt and he was outscored by Nuke. Like, Nuke was the wide receiver 7 weeks 9 to 14, just 2.5 fantasy points ahead of Michael Thomas in PPR. Actually, Nuke, Justin Jefferson, Allen Robinson, and Juju all barely outscored Michael Thomas over those 6 weeks when he was scoring as a top 12 wide receiver. Just the touchdowns I'm worried about.
Sure. And yeah, absolutely. I don't know who's going to be the guy. I don't know if it's going to be Taysom. I don't know if it'll be Jameis, and I don't know if it'll be somebody else. Like, if you're in Vegas and you're throwing down on the odds, I mean, they're talking up Jameis recently, so it seems like he would be the favorite for the job. But honestly, I don't know. But like Kyle Shanahan, I believe in Sean Payton, the offensive mind, to figure out whoever it is. I think he'll figure it out and get it done. He means, like, they were winning. Going with Taysom Hill was a heavily criticized move by this guy.
Yeah.
and
if
you just have audio on, I am pointing directly to myself. I thought it was the stupidest thing that I had ever seen in the NFL. And Taysom Hill, I don't know what his actual win-loss was, but he won most of his games.
Yeah.
I think I think they've only lost once or twice without Drew Brees over the last, like in those 10 games that Michael Thomas has played without Drew Brees. I think they were undefeated until the last or the 9th or 10th game there. It's crazy. Mac Jones for life.
Yeah.
There's
some
Jones
talk
guy.
Because, well, if you think about it, like, this is my whole debate with Michael Thomas will be how mobile is that quarterback? Because obviously Sean Payton can really unleash a pretty weaponized offense with a mobile quarterback. And, if it is someone like Mac Jones who's a statue, I think that'll really help someone like Michael Thomas, no matter how bad Mac Jones might be in year one.
Good point. Yeah. I am still in the camp that I hope it's Jameis because I want to see Sean Payton.
My dynasty team really wants that to happen.
Yeah.
Preach, brother, preach.
I just don't see how they afford Jameis.
I just sit with Jameis on my bench for an entire year, just clocking, knowing he's going to do nothing.
Same, drafting him way too high in Superflex startups just for that hope that he's going to be throwing YOLO balls up there. So I want to see the Sean Payton offense morph myself, and I want to see it with Jameis throwing balls to Michael Thomas because I think that could be good for Michael Thomas, and even those touchdowns, like you said, Ty.
He's got the LASIK now. He can see.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Just no shoplifting, Jameis. None of that anymore.
Yeah.
No groping.
Yeah. A litany of things that Jameis should not do. So the next guy I'm going to get into, Hitman, is Odell Beckham Jr. Not a ton of talk about Odell, which is quite the fall from grace for somebody who was an elite wide receiver for fantasy football just a couple of years ago. I think he's almost kind of being written off for somebody who had that kind of, he was on that tier of our fantasy hierarchies for the wide receiver position going in the first rounds, much like we see Michael Thomas kind of deal. The Browns obviously run one of those run heavy offenses, kind of like what Shanny's doing. But I think with Stefanski, that's just his offense. So I don't think that's necessarily going to change a whole lot, especially with Baker at the helm. And if you look at Odell's contract, he's going to save them $15 million the next 2 years if they cut him. So I'm curious.
Do you have the dead cap number in front of you?
0 the next 2 years at $15 million. Yeah.
So we have him in our dynasty pass. I had written him up as a potential cap casualty. I couldn't remember it was that low. Goodness.
For sure. And so, we could see Odell going to a new team. I'm curious what you think, Hitman, about his potential if he were to stay with the Browns, and then what you think he can be still for fantasy if he were to say go to a more pass heavy offense.
Yeah, he's being talked about a lot for potential. Maybe they cut him, maybe they trade him. We did. Let's see, what did we had 6 full games of Odell Beckham, and 2 games you were happy. 2 games you were very happy that you started him. The other ones, though, very, very disappointed. Sure. I will say that watching this team, they are a run heavy team, and Stefanski ran a run heavy team up in his short stint in Minnesota, and you still had value. You still had value at the wide receiver position. Minnesota's still a run heavy team. But they're good, and you have value at the wide receiver position. So I'm not scared off by the term run heavy as long as they're good. That's just what it comes down to. Is the offense good? They're run heavy. Fine, whatever. Wide receivers are still going to get theirs. They might be a little bit more inconsistent, but they're going to get theirs more often than they won't. And Baker Mayfield was definitely better in the second half of the season. Baker Mayfield at the beginning of the year, they were winning, but it was,
yikes.
Hey, Baker, you
despite
look like,
him.
Yes, you look, the team is winning because they're running so well. Baker sucks. He is what he was in his second year in the league. And then he was in a brand new scheme. Like how many offensive coordinator changes has Baker Mayfield had to deal with in coaching changes? Like that those are mental things that us common folk are like, hey, you just learn a new playbook. I've read books. It's real easy. You just learn it and you memorize everything. You have no clue how difficult it is to learn a completely brand new offense. And it takes we just talked about Bruce Arians. The first year he was here with the Arizona Cardinals, they were terrible. Carson Palmer, I think, threw his career high in interceptions. And then it clicked because the second year he was more familiar with the system. But the second half of the season, once they got past all those insane weather games, Baker was clearly a better, more confident quarterback. So I have some faith in Odell. The question is his body. I don't want to label anybody injury prone, but the dude's been hurt now for 4 straight years.
Yeah.
His body doesn't seem like it wants to play football. This year was a freak accident. It's kind of been a freak accident every single time. So maybe he just peed in the wrong fountain. I don't know, and he got hit with some dose of a curse. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what happened to Odell Beckham where he's cursed with these bad injuries. I do still believe that he is a good wide receiver. Maybe he's not elite anymore, but I think that he's going to be drafted accordingly this year. I think that
you're right.
The fantasy football community we have had enough of Baker hype and Baker shenanigans, so he'll be drafted appropriately, probably as like a 5th round wide receiver, and at that point, yes, a 5th round wide receiver who I've seen dominate and be number 1 overall, yeah, I'll take the chance then. I don't have to leverage one of my high value picks in the draft for him anymore.
Mm-hmm. And that's bearing out too. I was just checking actually in a recent startup that I had, and I got Odell as my wide receiver 2 at the back of the 7th round. So I think that's really good value for the player that he can be, right?
Yeah.
Like, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Who's
Absolutely,
going in the 7th
absolutely.
round? A bunch of dudes who suck.
Especially that has the upside that he does, right? And I think the main takeaway from what you were saying there is that you don't have to shy away from these run heavy teams, because I think what we saw with the Vikings with Justin Jefferson and Thielen, those guys are the funnel. That's it. Those are the guys that are getting the targets, and you know it, so you can rely on that. And I think we could see something similar in Cleveland if Odell were to stay, because the only other real target competition that they have is Hooper and then maybe Kareem Hunt. But Kareem Hunt, even he is getting a lot of his work done in the red zone as a runner, not necessarily those high target totals. So I think this could be something similar. So like I said, at like 7th round value, I'm definitely in on Odell. I think he's 28 now, so he could have a couple years left as long as those bones hold up.
Yeah. And tendons.
Yes. Soft tissue.
So what are you saying, Trav? Do you think we should ride out of here? We're at about getting close to an hour here.
Yeah, we're getting there. We don't want to keep you too long. Hitman, you got time for one more guy, my man?
We can do another guy. We can do fun questions. We can do whatever you want to do, man.
Okay, rip it, Ty. Get your next one out.
Well, I have to ask about Aaron Jones. He's like my favorite player of all time history. And basically, I just want to know, do you think he's going to have some of the similar success that he's had in Green Bay elsewhere if he was to leave town?
If he leaves, it's 100% situational. There are situations out there right now, like Miami, where he has been linked to, and the fantasy football community, even before
that's sorry, I was just waving to the fam there. My 10-month-old son saw me on my wife's screen and gave a daddy. So what up, boy?
Oh, my boy. If he ends up in Miami, he's going to get an unbelievable amount of volume. Mm-hmm. It sounds like he's being priced, or if he sounds like he's pricing himself out of Green Bay, but the salary cap is going down. Teams will not have the leverage to wield for a really high-priced running back. We'll see if that has any effect, and if he has to go back to Green Bay, which would make A.J. Dillon very, very sad on my dynasty roster, because I spent the 2nd-round pick with just the upshot that Aaron Jones actually goes somewhere else. Aaron Jones is good. Like I talked about, running backs don't matter, but there are better running backs. Aaron Jones is a better running back. He is a complete running back who can get it done in a 3-down situation. So more than likely, he's still going to be good for fantasy football, because if he leaves Green Bay, it's because someone gave him a dump truck of gold bullion, man, and that he's part of the plan. You don't give a running back $13 million a year to give them 175 touches. That just that doesn't make sense. You give a guy that much money because you think he can be foundational. So I think Aaron Jones is going to be fine. Fantasy-wise, just for Aaron Jones, Green Bay is the best place for him to go. Players staying in the same system they've been in. Former success is the best indicator of future success, unfortunately. That's the best thing we have to go on. So if you've got Aaron Jones, you're hoping he goes back to Green Bay, but there are places out there where he can go and succeed.
Mike, what do you like more, ketchup chips or like a decent poutine? Like not an elite poutine.
Well, Mike's a poutine guy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of poutine.
So like fast food poutine then, or ketchup chips.
Oh, well, here's the thing. I love fast food. It's fast and it's delicious. I have not had fast food poutine. My time in Canada has been short and furious, just real quick, where I was at a trade show, but there was some people cooking up some poutine there. It was fantastic. My only experience with the ketchup chips was I heard about them. I saw them at the airport. I bought a bag, and then they just kind of like sat on my shelf as a collector's item.
Nice.
I was like, No, I'm not going to open those. I mean, it makes sense. I put my French fries in ketchup. So why is it weird to put a fried potato into ketchup?
Thank you.
Like it.
They're not great. Yeah.
I love them. I love them.
That's fine.
Well, I'll just say all dressed chips are definitely like in a different stratosphere compared to ketchup chips.
It's so funny how we get we get used to a food cooked a particular way, like French fries. And you're like, yeah, absolutely. Of course you put ketchup on French fries. Like, what about mashed potatoes? Oh, well, I would never put ketchup.
Yeah, you're like a criminal. Yeah.
It's the same thing, man.
Prison,
It's a potato.
put ketchup on.
Put
yeah,
some
exactly.
ketchup on it. Which I've never done ketchup on mashed potatoes, but
Nor have I.
I bet you if you put cheese and ketchup on mashed potatoes, I bet you it's good.
Yeah, shout out to yeah, nice. Yeah, shout out to I was gonna say Ty. Shout out to our buddy Josh Campbell because he puts that shit on everything. So
Really?
I guarantee you he's tried that. I know that he used to eat straight ketchup sandwiches. So he's the OG ketchup truther. Yeah. Had to give him some love. I haven't tried it, and I'm not recommending that by any means, but that's devotion to your ketchup. And
yeah, that's wild.
I might have to send a little package your way, Mike, because the 101 of ketchup chips are made by Old Dutch, which is a Canadian company.
Okay.
Those are the ones you've got to try because of all ketchup chips. The other brands don't do it justice. These ones are like
a Lay's.
Yeah, Lay's one of the worst ketchup chips, I would probably say. So you should probably be happy you haven't eaten that. You should be happy that you haven't eaten that.
Get out of here, Mark Messier.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll have to see what we can do about getting you some Old Dutch down there because they are just covered in that delicious red powder, and
all right,
it'll get everywhere, but it'll be totally worth it. Awesome, fellas. Well, that's all we got tonight. Mike, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. It was a blast. And the funny thing about French is that saying hello and saying goodbye are the same thing. So you can, well, in certain sentences. So there's certain words. So yeah, if you switch it up and don't say bonjour, you can say salut, and that's both ways. So we could dip a little deeper.
I don't know that word.
I was actually thinking that, yeah, it's like salute without pronouncing the T. Salute.
I can hit you with a mean merci or whatever. However you pronounce
the accent on this guy
is all ours.
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's been a blast chatting with you, Mike. We've looked up to your guys' work for a long time, and I can say for sure that in 2015 at the office, me and my buddy Drew were listening religiously, and you guys are kind of what made me want to get into the podcasting and content creation world. So
that's fantastic.
It's awesome, man. You guys just showed us what buddies who are like-minded can do if they put their mind to it.
We showed you what three buffoons can get done if you put a microphone in front of them.
It's awesome, man. You guys make magic.
Nothing better to
do. Killer. So yeah, I want to say thanks to everybody who's been in the comments. There's been a ton of people there. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, the site is truenorthffb.com, and you can find us on Twitter at truenorthffb. So thanks to Mike. Hopefully we can have you on again sometime, brother, because it's been a slice, and we will see everybody next week. Peace.
Goodbye.